So we have to be very careful. Now is the age of the information explosion, and now we know a lot of things more than our grandparents used to know. And nowadays we question a lot of things. Formerly our grandparents dare not question. Formerly in the olden days, in the religious teachings, you are asked to believe this, believe that, and don't ask questions. Nowadays people are different. People learn to ask questions, ask everything. And the Buddha also encouraged you to ask. Don't simply believe blindly. So this story about the Buddha cultivating paramis is something that was created much later. If we look at the early discourses of the Buddha, found in the Sutta Pitaka, which consists about 5,000 discourses of the Buddha, you find this word parami was never uttered by the Buddha. The Buddha didn't know this word parami also. We are smarter than the Buddha. We know the word parami. So that is one thing. Another thing is the story about our Buddha, where after his wife gave birth to a son, then he decided to renounce. Then in the middle of the night, it is stated, he took a last look at his son and at his wife. Then he went away to renounce and become ascetic. But in the Majjhima Nikaya, it is stated that the Buddha, in front of his parents who were crying, and his parents pleaded with him not to renounce the home life and become an ascetic. In spite of his parents crying and pleading with him, in front of them, he cut off his hair and put on the yellow robe, and he went forth. So he was not a coward, hiding in the middle of the night and went away. In front of his parents, he told his parents that he is renouncing. He cannot live at home. If you study the suttas clearly, more detail, you will find in the early discourses of the Buddha, this word bodhisattva, the Buddha used only to refer to himself in the last 3 lifetimes. When he was a disciple of the last Buddha, Kassapa, the previous Buddha Kassapa, he renounced and became a disciple of the Buddha Kassapa. At that time, he had entered the stream because he listened to the Buddha's teachings and he understood the 4 noble truths. So he renounced the home life and became a monk under the Buddha Kassapa. At that time onwards, he was a bodhisattva. The suttas refer to himself as a bodhisattva in that lifetime, and in the next lifetime when he was reborn in the Tusita heaven, and in the last lifetime when he came down as Siddhartha Gautama. These 3 lifetimes only, the Buddha referred to himself as a bodhisattva. So actually a bodhisattva is a being who is already an Arya and is destined for enlightenment. So from the suttas we find when the Buddha in his previous lifetime practiced under the Buddha Kassapa, he must have attained the first jhana, because when he came back as Siddhartha Gautama, as a young man, he sat under the jambu tree and attained the first jhana. So if a person can attain the first jhana and practice and listen to the suttas, he would become a Sakadagamin, a second fruit attainer. A Sakadagamin is called a once returner. That means he goes to heaven and he comes back to the human existence only one more time, and he must enter Nibbana. It's like a ripe fruit; it must fall. Whether there's wind or there's no wind, it's overripe; it will fall. So the same with the Sakadagamin. It is time for him to enter Nibbana. So when Sakadagamins come back in the human birth, they will naturally renounce and go forth and practice ascetic practices until they become enlightened. So it is not true that to become a Buddha, you make a vow and then you practice the paramis and eventually you perfect your paramis and you become enlightened. On the other hand, what is found in the suttas is that you listen to the discourses of the Buddha and you enter the stream. After you enter the stream, then if you meditate and attain the jhanas, then you are bound for enlightenment. In the legends, the stories concerning our Buddha, we find that it is stated that the Buddha met 24 Buddhas who predicted that he will one day become the Buddha Sakyamuni. But actually, in the actual discourses of the Buddha, we find that the Buddha mentioned that when he looked back into the past, he only saw 6 Buddhas. And these 6 Buddhas were seen by him over the last, 91 world cycles. 91 world cycles is an extremely long time. So for the Buddha to look back into 91 world cycles, he must have spent the whole night, from 6 o'clock in the evening until 6 o'clock the next morning, looking at the past, looking. And he saw during that time only 6 Sammasambuddhas. Pacceka Buddhas, there are a lot. In fact, of all the Buddhas, we find 99.9% of Buddhas are Pacceka Buddhas. They refuse to teach. Very few Buddhas actually want to become a Sammasambuddha. So it was the same with our Sakyamuni Buddha. When he was enlightened, he contemplated the minds of human beings and he found that it was very difficult to convince people to practice the Dhamma. So he decided he was not going to teach the Dhamma, he's going to become a Pacceka Buddha. But then this Brahma, I think Sahampati, came and pleaded with the Buddha, said, although it is true that most beings will not want to practice the Dhamma, yet there is a small percentage of beings who are willing to practice the Dhamma, and if you don't teach them the Dhamma, they will not progress. So because of the few, the Buddha came to teach the Dhamma. So we are heirs of the Dhamma. We inherit the teachings of the Buddha through the Arahants. So it is also for people like us that the Buddha taught the Dhamma. So don't think that you don't have these paramis, if you want to call it. We have a lot of parami, we have a lot of good merit to be able to listen to the true teachings of the Buddha. Only thing is we have to investigate more. Because the Buddha said to become an Arya, you must get right view. And to attain right view, you have 2 conditions only. One is to listen to the Dhamma, that means the earliest teachings of the Buddha. And secondly, if you have yoniso manasikara, a clear mind, which is achieved through, when you listen to the Dhamma, you must pay thorough attention. If you pay thorough attention when you are listening to the Dhamma, then you can understand. And then if you understand the 4 noble truths, then you have entered the stream. And once you have entered the stream, you are actually a bodhisattva. And at the most, you have 7 more lifetimes, 7 more existences, and you will never fall into the woeful plains. You will never become a ghost or an animal or go to hell to suffer. So it is very well worth our time to spend more time to listen to the Buddha's Dhamma and try to understand. I believe this Buddhist Society has some of my talks, MP3 talks, 4 of them in English and 4 of them in Hokkien. And these comprise almost all of the talks I have given since 1988. So I hope you have the interest to try to get a copy of these CDs and listen.